Today, we're really getting into something fascinating, looking at these ancient distinctions between clean and unclean.
Yeah, specifically with food, creatures, even everyday objects. It's quite something.
And we're drawing directly from, well, a very detailed source, Leviticus chapter 11.
Exactly. And our goal really is to unpack these rules,
Okay.
figure out what made something okay to eat or touch and what was forbidden according to this text.
And maybe get a sense of why it mattered so much.
That's the core question, isn't it? And as you said, the level of detail is, well, it's pretty striking. Some of these classifications can seem surprising to us now.
Right. It's not just good or bad. It's this whole system linking daily life to purity and holiness.
Absolutely. So let's start where the text starts. Land animals. There's a fundamental rule right at the beginning.
Okay, lay it on us. What makes a land animal clean or okay to eat?
Well, it needs to meet two criteria, not just one, but both.
Okay, what are they?
First, it must have a completely divided hoof, cloven-footed. And second, it must chew the cud. Both of those things.
Divided hoof and choose the cud. Got it. So if it only has one.
Then it's unclean. And the text, interestingly, immediately lists some examples that fall into this category, animals that only meet one condition.
Ah, yeah. Like the camel, right.
Exactly. The camel chews the cud, sure, but its hoof isn't fully divided in the way the text requires.
Okay. And the hyrax.
Same deal. Chews the cud, but nope, no divided hoof. Unclean.
And the rabbit, it mentions the rabbit too.
Also chews the cud, or appears to, but again, the hoof doesn't match. So unclean.
So those three are out because they chew the cud but lack the right kind of hoof.
Precisely. Then it flips it. What about the pig?
The pig, well, it definitely has a divided hoof.
It does, but...
It doesn't chew the cud.
Correct. So the pig fails the second test, explicitly listed as unclean.
And the consequence for these specific animals, camel, hyrax, rabbit, pig, is pretty serious.
Very. The text says you absolutely must not eat their meat. And more than that, even touching their carcasses, their dead bodies, makes you unclean.
Wow, so it's not just about ingestion. Contact is enough.
Contact with a dead animal, yes. That state of uncleanness is a key concept here. It's a kind of ritual impurity.
And does it broaden out beyond just those four animals?
It does. It basically says any land animal that either lacks the divided hoof or doesn't chew the cud is unclean for you.
And touching any of their carcasses makes you unclean.
That's the general rule. Then there's another specific category mentioned.
Oh.
Animals that walk on all fours, but specifically on their paws, like think cats or dogs, maybe bears, though it doesn't name them.
Okay, things that walk on paws. What about them?
Unclean. And touching their carcasses makes you unclean until evening. Just simple contact.
Until evening. Is there more?
Yeah, if you actually pick up the carcass, carry it. Then you also have to wash your clothes, and you're still unclean till evening.
Huh. So different levels of contact, different ritual responses. Washing clothes adds another layer.
It suggests a deeper level of contamination, needing an extra step for purification.
Okay, that covers land animals pretty thoroughly. What about creatures in the water? Seas, streams.
Similar logic, actually. Two criteria, again, for what's permissible to eat.
Let me guess. Fins and scales.
You got it. Fins and scales, both are required.
So anything in the water, fish, shellfish, whatever, if it's missing either fins or scales or both.
It's considered unclean. The text uses a strong word, sometimes translated as detestable.
And the consequences, same idea.
Pretty much. Don't eat their meat and regard their carcasses as unclean. Very straightforward.
Yeah.
No fins or no scales means it's forbidden.
All right. Land, water. What about the air? Birds.
Birds are handled a bit differently. Instead of giving criteria for clean birds, the text provides a list of birds that are specifically unclean, forbidden to eat.
So it lists the exceptions, the ones you can't eat.
Exactly. And it's quite a list. It starts with birds of prey, mostly.
Mm-mm.
The eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, different kinds of kites and ravens. Then various owls, horned owl, screech owl, great owl, white owl, desert owl.
Yeah.
Also the gull, hawks, the cormorant, the osprey, the stork, herons, the hoopoe.
That's a lot of specific birds.
It is. And then, interestingly, right at the end of that list, the bat.
The bat, listed with the birds.
Yep.
Right there.
Which, from a modern biological standpoint seems odd, but in the text system, it's grouped with these forbidden flying creatures.
It suggests their categories might be based more on maybe habitat or appearance or behavior rather than strict taxonomy as we'd see it.
That's a good way to put it. It's their system of ordering the world.
Okay, what about other flying things? Insects.
Flying insects. The general rule is that flying insects that walk on all fours,
Mm.
so most of them, I guess, are considered unclean.
Most flying insects are out,
That-
but I feel an exception coming.
There is one, again, very specific. If a flying insect walks on all fours, but it also has jointed legs above its feet for hopping on the ground.
Like grasshoppers.
Exactly. Any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper, these specific hopping insects are permitted.
So most flying crawlers, unclean. Hopping flyers, clean, another fine distinction.
It's all about these precise lines.
Okay, let's go down to the ground level now. Creatures that move along the ground, swarming things, maybe.
Yeah, that kind of category. The rule here is pretty broad, actually. Basically, every creature that moves along the ground is unclean, not to be eaten.
Every single one, regardless of how it moves.
It seems so. The text specifies whether it moves on its belly like a snake perhaps, or walks on all fours, or has many feet like centipedes maybe, all considered unclean in this category.
And does it give examples here too?
It does list some specific ones that fall into this unclean ground mover banner.
Like what?
The weasel, the rat, any kind of great lizard.
Okay.
The gecko, the monitor lizard, the wall lizard, the skink, and the chameleon.
Lots of reptiles and rodents, it sounds like.
Seems to be the focus, yeah. And the consequence for touching them.
Let me guess. Unclean until evening.
Exactly. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean till evening. That contact with the carcass again.
This theme of contamination by touch, especially with dead, unclean animals, it really runs through the whole chapter, doesn't it?
It's absolutely central. It's not just a dietary guide. It's deeply concerned with maintaining ritual purity and avoiding contamination.
So maybe we should unpack those contamination rules a bit more. They seem quite intricate, especially regarding objects.
They really are. So as we've seen, touching the carcass of many of these unclean animals makes a person unclean until the evening. That's the baseline.
Right. But you mentioned picking up a carcass, like the paw walkers, required washing clothes. Does that apply elsewhere?
Yes, it comes up again. For instance, if a clean animal, one you could normally eat, dies naturally, not slaughtered properly, picking up its carcass also requires washing clothes and being unclean till evening.
Ah, so even a normally clean animal becomes a source of this kind of impurity if it just dies on its own.
Correct. The manner of death matters. But where it gets really complex is when a carcass of one of those specific unclean ground dwellers, the weasel, rat, lizard types we just mentioned, falls onto an object.
Okay. What happens then? Does the object become unclean?
It depends entirely on the object.
Really? How so?
Well, if the carcass falls on something made of wood or cloth or hide or sackcloth, the object becomes unclean, yes, but it can be cleansed.
How?
You have to put it in water. It stays unclean until evening, and then after that time of the water immersion, it's considered clean again. So temporary cleansable contamination.
Okay, water and time can fix it for those materials, but I remember you saying something about clay pots.
Ah, yes. Clay pots are totally different. If one of these carcasses falls into an earthenware pot,
Yeah.
everything inside the pot becomes unclean. And the pot itself, it must be broken.
Broken, you can't just wash it out.
Nope. The text is absolute. Break the pot. Its contamination is permanent, irreversible for that material.
Wow, that's a huge difference. Wood you can wash, clay you have to destroy.
Exactly. And it extends further. Any food or drink inside that pot when it was contaminated is unclean. Even water used for food prep, if it came into contact with water from such a defiled pot, becomes unclean.
So the impurity spreads through contact, especially with liquids.
It seems so. And ovens and cooking pots get similar treatment to the clay pot. If a carcass touches them, they become unclean and must be broken up, destroyed.
Anything used for preparing food seems especially vulnerable to permanent contamination.
That seems to be the implication, yes.
What about like a well or a cistern? Big water sources. Can they become unclean if a carcass falls in?
Interestingly, no. The text makes an exception there. A spring or a cistern holding water remains clean.
Huh. So the water source itself is protected.
The source itself, yes. But, crucially, the person who touches or removes the carcass from the water source, they still become unclean until evening.
So the person gets contaminated, but the well doesn't. That's another nuance.
It is. It distinguishes between the person's ritual state and the inherent purity of the water source, perhaps.
What about seeds, like seeds for planting crops?
Another specific rule, if a carcass falls on dry seeds intended for sowing, the seeds remain clean.
Okay, dry seeds are fine.
But if water has already been put on the seed before the carcass touches them,
Then they become unclean.
then they become unclean. It's like the water activates their susceptibility to this kind of ritual impurity.
Dry, resistant, wet, susceptible. Fascinating.
It really is. And finally, that point about clean animals dying naturally comes up again with more detail.
Okay, so an animal normally okay to eat, but it just dies. What are all the rules?
Right. So number one, anyone who just touches the carcass is unclean until evening. Number two, anyone who eats any part of that carcass must wash their clothes and is unclean until evening.
Eating it requires washing clothes.
Yes. And number three, anyone who merely picks up or carries the carcass, even without eating it, must also wash their clothes and is unclean until evening.
So both eating and carrying the carcass of a naturally deceased clean animal trigger that higher level of impurity requiring clothes washing.
That's right. The state of the animal at death is critical for how it impacts ritual purity.
This is just an incredibly detailed system covering everything from diet to accidental contact with dead animals to pottery.
It really is. And after laying all this out, the text itself explains the point of it all.
What does it say? What's the stated purpose?
It says, pretty directly near the end of the chapter, these are the regulations to distinguish between the unclean and the clean, between living creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten.
So the immediate goal is classification, making these distinctions clear.
That's the practical function, yes. But then it links this immediately to a much bigger idea, a command, really. It says, I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves and be holy because I am holy. And it repeats a similar idea, mentioning bringing them out of Egypt. I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore be holy because I am holy.
Ah, so that's the ultimate why. This whole complex system of clean and unclean, what you eat, what you touch, it's fundamentally about being holy, being set apart, because God is holy.
Exactly. It's not just arbitrary rules.
Yeah.
It's presented as a way to live out that holiness in the everyday tangible world. Consecration through distinction.
Making the abstract idea of holiness concrete through daily practice.
Precisely. By carefully observing these distinctions, what you eat, what you avoid, how you handle contamination, the people are enacting their unique relationship with God, reflecting God's own separateness or holiness.
And the text makes sure to say this covers everything: land animals, birds, water creatures, ground movers. It's comprehensive.
It is. Animals, birds, everything in the water, everything that moves on the ground. It aims to provide a complete framework for this aspect of holy living.
It really shows how, in this worldview, there wasn't really a sharp divide between religious life and ordinary life. It was all integrated.
Very much so. What happened in your kitchen or in the field was directly tied to your standing as part of a holy people.
As we finish up this deep dive, the sheer level of detail is just staggering, isn't it? The effort to categorize and regulate based on these specific criteria.
It really makes you think about the mindset behind it. A world ordered by these principles of purity and separation, reflecting a divine mandate. Every choice, every contact potentially had significance.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener. How does this ancient way of embedding the sacred, this idea of holiness, into the absolute nitty-gritty of daily life, what you eat, what you touch, even your pottery, how does that resonate or contrast with how we might separate or connect the sacred and the everyday in our own lives?
Yeah, something to definitely ponder as you go about your day.